At around 7:15 p.m. of 14 September 2018, the police received a 911 call. Marie Kimani reported that Jonathan had been shot from her home in Rome, Texas. She claimed that she messed up during an argument. This is the tragic love story between Jonathan Kimani Tumbo and Marie Kendale Kimani. Theirs was quite a story. Jonathan was born in 1978. His love Marie was born 5 years later in the year 1983. The two were born in Kenya, and their childhood details remain anonymous. What is well known is that their love story began in high school. They had met in their high school teenage phase when they had attended an inter-school competition. They enjoyed the life of being boyfriend and girlfriend. They were envied high school sweethearts. As fate would have it, after graduating from high school, they inevitably grew apart. Both of them joined different universities. They both moved on with life too, and did not deny themselves a chance to explore further in other relationships. Mary had met a new man years later where she got married and had a son by the name Jeremy Mushaimi. However, the marriage failed and they two went separate ways. She was left with her son as a single mom and vowed to now give all of her attention into raising her baby rather than chasing after men. She was fortunate enough to land an opportunity in the USA. She left Jeremy under her parents' care to go seek greener pastures back in the year 2008. For Jonathan, he had also completed his university education. He landed a good job in Dubai in the year 2008. Surprisingly enough, fate made their paths cross again. They reconnected through Facebook platform where they began chatting. Their one-year dated finally ended in a marriage back in April 2019. For 2 more years, the couple did not manage to start living together, but they would regularly visit each other. However, in 2011, Jonathan moved to the US to go join his wife. They began a life together now. It wasn't a perfect marriage, which is okay for everyone, but at least they tried to maintain a balance. Couples go through disagreements sometimes, it's normal. When Jeremy turned 10 years, Mary brought him to the USA to live with her and Jonathan as his stepdad. Jonathan ended up bonding too much with Mary's son to an extent where the boy seemed to be too attached to him than its mother. But after a while, the marriage started to hit the road. Mary and Jonathan started fighting frequently. Jonathan could throw and smash things around anytime they got into a fight. Mary was threatening Jonathan and her own son. On one instance, Jeremy had gone through a panic attack where he even contacted the suicide hotline for help due to his mother's hostility. Out of that, he was placed in foster care. All these fights mostly were being aggravated by Mary's thought that Jonathan was sleeping around with many women. They had even started sleeping in separate bedrooms. Somehow her fears felt reasonable, since she had recently found out that after they got married, in between the 2 years they were separate, Jonathan had sired a son with another woman in Dubai. He still maintained contact with her, and he even offered child support behind Mary's back. Mary constantly felt infuriated by such revelations. To add salt to the injury, Jonathan had kept it a secret for so long, until recently she found it quite unfair, since for her, she had been honest about Jeremy since the beginning. In June 2018, the marriage became unbearable for Mary. She filed for a divorce. Jonathan did not protest. 2 months later, August 2018, the divorce process was finalized and they were free of each other as husband and wife. Mary's attitude was somehow unbearable. She did not like the idea of Jonathan moving on so fast and starting a life with his new girlfriend, Alinda Davis. The relationship started to annoy Mary. Despite the fact that 3 weeks had now passed since the divorce process was finalized, Marie was not ready to let Jonathan breathe. On the 13th of September 2018, Jonathan went to see his girlfriend at her workplace where she worked as a bartender. Shocking enough, after Jonathan arrived to see Alinda, only a few minutes passed before Marie stormed in. Alinda tried to maintain her calm, acting decently since this is her workplace and she needed to protect her job. Marie would finally see Alinda privately and warned her against seeing Jonathan, stating that they were still married. Holy moly! Jonathan also tried to speak Marie out of the drama, but she quickly walked out of the restaurant. She looked purely agitated. After the day passed, Jonathan still went to stay at Alinda's place in the evening. While there, that's when he received unrelenting messages from Marie wanting him to go pick his stuff, his dog included. The following day of 14th September 2018, Jonathan informed Alinda, his new woman, that he will be going to clear his stuff from his ex-wife's house, Marie Kimani. He drove to Forest Lawn in Shell Creek neighborhood, where Marie lived. While at Marie's place, Jonathan had received countless messages from his girlfriend, Alinda. She was acting restless. She finally decided to make a call rather than send text messages that Jonathan never replied. Someone finally picked the phone. It was Marie. "What do you want?" she asked angrily. Cops and paramedics arrived at Marie's within 15 minutes. Upon entering the house, Jonathan lay on his back on the floor of the closet, a firearm near him. He had a single gunshot wound on his chest area. The murder weapon is a 9mm handgun registered as Marie Kimani's. A bullet had penetrated through his heart and lungs, exiting through the back. Upon examination by the paramedics, he was pronounced dead. During her statement, Marie Kimani claims that the shooting was not intentional. She claimed that it was an accident, but still was arrested and charged with murder. August 2019, her trial began. Investigators by then had discovered that her statement did not correspond with the evidence they had collected. Marie's defense team had tried to argue that Jonathan is the one that had held the gun against Marie, where she managed to grab it from him, but she messed up in the process, meaning accidentally pulled the trigger. But based on the physical evidence, the shooting happened very differently from how Marie described it. Evidence proved that Jonathan was shot while already laying on his back and at an extremely close range. Firearms analysts would also prove that the weapon had a very heavy trigger pull, which made the weapon less susceptible to accidental discharge. There was proof that Marie had also tampered with the crime scene by doing some cleaning before calling 911. There were other claims that Marie, during their marriage, had stood over her sleeping husband with a gun pointed at him, making jokes on how Jonathan looked peaceful and that she could just pull the trigger and end it all. Then, surprisingly, she did not object the claims when they surfaced during the prosecution process. Marie was most probably a psychotic woman who kept threatening Jeremy, her own son, together with Jonathan, with death threats. Imagine, even her own son had testified against her during the case hearing. Her defense attorneys claimed that the shooting was accidental was finally controverted by the firearms expert as well as other evidence. They lacked strong argument to the case. Marie's life was finally crumbling on her. Her malicious act was aggravated by jealousy and uncontrollable anger caught up with her. She could not have processed the reality of Jonathan moving on so fast after the divorce. On top of that, she had learned that he had been cheating on her while in Dubai and even after coming to the USA. On that day when Jonathan came to pick up his stuff, Marie had seduced him into making love to her in the closet. That is the first place they did it after he moved to the USA. She wanted him to make love to her one last time before saying the final goodbyes. He was in that laying position. She was on top riding him when she quickly pulled the gun and shot him on the chest from the heart area. She then cleaned the crime scene and then called 911 later. After a week of testimonies at the court, Wise County jury found Marie Kendale Kimani guilty of murder. She was found guilty for the killing of Jonathan Kimani Tumbo. She received a 40 years jail time and a fine of $10,000. She attempted to appeal the verdict but was fruitless. The sentence remained upheld, but she was eligible for parole after serving 20 years in prison, meaning eligibility will mature in 2038. Mary, now left to confront the enormity of her actions, would be forever marked by irreversible choices she made in a moment of unbearable despair. For Jonathan Kimani Tumbo, may his soul rest in eternal peace. Cops and paramedics arrived at Marie's within 15 minutes. Upon entering the house,